Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
What are your thoughts on Saudi Arabia and Iran reestablishing diplomatic relations, sir?
The better the relations between Israel and the Arab neighbors, the better for everyone.
Name me a world leader who changed places with Xi Jinping. Name me one. Name me one. America's rallying the world to meet those challenges, from climate to global health, to food insecurity, to terrorism, to territorial aggression. Allies are stepping up, spending more and doing more.
This is my first video update coming to you from Athens, Greece on this Saturday afternoon. Let's talk about some news. And of course, we have the big story from yesterday, which is the rapprochement between Saudi Arabia and Iran, brokered by China. A very big development, which has the potential to unlock a lot of diplomatic doors and diplomatic stalemates in the Middle East. But right now we have Iran and Saudi Arabia. They have agreed to reopen diplomatic ties, to re-engage diplomatically. And this is a huge win for China. China has just mediated a massive diplomatic deal in the Middle East, while the U.S. is completely obsessed with Ukraine. So China is, without a doubt, positioning itself. It has positioned itself as the go-to country for resolving problems in the world. And they did it with diplomacy, not with warnings, not with lecturing, not with sanctions, not with any of that stuff. They did it with diplomacy. Very quiet, very discreet diplomacy, because this deal must have been in the works for many, many months, but everything was kept very, very quiet. And Xi Jinping was elected president for a third term, and the next day, we get this story, we get this news. So this is a big diplomatic win for China. It has the potential to finally bring an end to the war in Yemen. It has that potential. It has the potential to resolve all kinds of difficulties in the Middle East, in Lebanon, in Syria. This is a big geopolitical game changer. And the next big one is going to be Syria. It's going to be Erdogan meeting with Assad. That's going to be the next big diplomatic win for Russia, but also for China, because Russia played a role in brokering this deal between Saudi Arabia and Iran. No doubt about that. That Russia played a big role, though they let China finish the deal. No doubt that they worked together, China and Russia, to get it to a point where they could get both countries to Beijing to finish off the negotiations. And Turkey, Syria, Erdogan, Assad, that's going to be the next big one. And I believe that Russia and China are working there as well. They're working the diplomatic angles for that meeting as well. But I think Russia then will take it to the last. They'll be the last mile for closing out that negotiation, that rapprochement between Erdogan and Assad, and welcoming Syria back into the diplomatic international world. Right? It's going to be Syria back in the game, accepted by the Arab states, accepted by all of their neighbors, diplomatic ties with all of their neighbors. It's going to be the next big win. And it's going to mean that the U.S. troops in Syria are going to be in a very difficult position. So expect something big from from Turkey and Syria as well. And while all of this is happening, the US, the EU, the Biden White House, the State Department, Jungle Joseph Borrell, Anthony Blinken, they're obsessed with Ukraine. Obsessed with Ukraine. This is what Blinken tweeted. When this deal went through, this was Blinken's tweet. Just so we understand how obsessed he is with Ukraine. Companies in the People's Republic of China are selling unmanned aerial vehicles to Iran. We are designating a PRC-based procurement network for these activities. They're still stuck on weapons from China to Iran, and from China to Russia, and Iran to Russia. They're still stuck on this narrative. And it's all about Ukraine. It's all about Ukraine. Jungle Joseph Borrell, he gave statements the other day, and he was talking about the EU has no more sanctions for Russia. We're all sanctioned out. And then he tried to BS everybody by saying that, you know, we took a very incremental approach. The EU took a very incremental approach towards sanctioning Russia, but over the year, we've run out of sanctions to place on Russia. That's what Jungle Joseph was saying while this big deal being negotiated in Beijing was wrapping up. They're still stuck on Ukraine. And it's BS. The whole incremental approach is BS because the approach was actually shock and awe. They thought that the sanctions against Russia in the first couple of months, got a race going on. They thought the sanctions in the first couple of months were going to sink the Russian economy. It didn't work. And so then they had to resort to sanctions that would boomerang back and hurt their own economies, like oil price caps and cutting off the gas and seizing frozen assets. And here's the kicker. Because they didn't get the shock and awe, sanctions collapse of the Russian government, and then they went down this path of cutting Russia off of SWIFT, talking about oil price caps, gas price caps, cutting off gas, cutting off oil shipments, seizing Russian assets. They went down this path, and you all know what this did? It helped China and Russia broker this deal with Iran and Saudi Arabia. Because Saudi Arabia saw all of this, OPEC countries saw all of this, and they said, these guys are crazy. They're running around trying to seize Russian assets. That could be me tomorrow. That could be Saudi Arabia next year. Now it's Russia. Next year it's Saudi Arabia. It's my assets as MBS that they're going to seize. Or trying to place price caps on oil. The G7 and the EU. You think that the OPEC nations, you think that Saudi Arabia was just going to sit there and allow the European Union and allow the G7 nations to dictate the price of oil? Of course not. But they were quiet. You notice OPEC didn't say anything. They expressed their concern. They weren't happy with the G7's oil price cap and price ceiling approach. But, you know, they were quiet over the past couple of months. And now, boom, you get Saudi Arabia, Iran. Diplomatic ties, rapprochement. And now you have Russia there as well. And these countries are going to go into BRICS. So in BRICS, you're going to have Russia, Iran, and Saudi Arabia. Big oil-producing countries. And Saudi Arabia and Iran, they're going to apply to enter BRICS, and they're going to get in. And no doubt about it. They're going to probably have a very prominent role in BRICS. I'm positive that the Chinese probably told them that. And I'm sure the Russians told them that. So they saw all of the craziness from the G7, from Bidenopolis, Greece's favorite son, from Van der Crazy, from Jungle Joseph, and they said, we got to get out of this Western system. this neoliberal Western system, and we gotta go with this new thing that's forming. So much for isolating Russia. That narrative is completely blown apart now. Sanctions against Iran, a lot of good. All those sanctions against Iran did. A lot of good they did. But they can't stop. They're going to continue to talk about weapons from China to Russia, and we're going to sanction China, and we're going to put more sanctions on Iran, and we're going to sanction Russia again with something that they can't stop. They're completely fixated and obsessed with Project Ukraine, while the entire rest of the world, outside of the collective West, is moved on. They've moved on. The Chinese, they can do diplomacy. The US State Department, all they can do is issue warnings and ultimatums and lecturing about human rights and the woke ideology and climate change and God knows what else they lecture countries about. But diplomacy, they don't know how to do diplomacy. And the entire world is just sick of being warned about supporting Russia and being warned about neutrality, and they have to side with the collective West, and they have to sanction Russia, and they have to do all of these things. The entire world is tired of it. They're tired of it. But Jake Sullivan was on the phone to the Georgian president, who's, from what I understand, she was born and raised in France or something like that, studied at Columbia University, but somehow she ended up being the president of Georgia. Go figure. Anyway, Sullivan was talking to her, and what was Sullivan's concern? Jake Sullivan, his concern was Georgia placing sanctions against Russia because of Ukraine. And she's going to go along with it, the president of Georgia. She's going to say, yeah, we'll once we get this regime change or get this new election and all of this stuff that they're working on now in Georgia because of the protests, once they get all of that done and completed, they're going to place sanctions on Russia. And it's going to sink the economy of Georgia. That's a guarantee. That is guaranteed. What's her name? Georgian President Salome Zurabishvili. U.S. Assistant to the President for National Security, Jake Sullivan, said during a meeting with Georgian President Salome Zurabishvili that Tbilisi should not become a platform for circumventing restriction. The parties discussed the need to ensure that Russia continues to feel the full economic cost of sanctions, export controls, and other economic restrictions imposed by the United States and the coalition with more than 30 allies and partners. 30 allies and partners, 40 allies and partners. Give me a break. The coalition is 5 entities, if that. It's the European Union, and from the European Union they get 27 countries, right? So that's how they frame the narrative. It's one entity. It's the EU, and everyone in the EU, with the exception of Orban, they go along with this stuff. So it's one entity. It's the EU. The allies are the US, the EU, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. There it is. And Japan every now and then, though Japan is buying up as much Russian oil as it can get its hands on. So, I mean, it's just a joke when they say we're a coalition of 30 or 40 countries or 50 countries. Those 30 countries are the European Union, and the countries inside the European Union are not sovereign nations. They have zero sovereignty, with the exception of Hungary. And Hungary's fighting for that sovereignty. The American ambassador in Hungary actually warned Viktor Orban the other day about Hungary's position towards Ukraine and Russia. In other words, Hungary wants peace, Hungary wants negotiations, Hungary wants a ceasefire. Viktor Orban has been saying that this is just hurting the European Union, it's not hurting Russia. Viktor Orban gave a warning saying that we're very close to having NATO boots on the ground in Ukraine. He issued that warning the other day. And what does the American ambassador do? he warns Viktor Orban, get in line. Get in line. Stop talking ceasefire and all of your logic and stuff like that. Stop making sense, Viktor Orban, and step in line with the rest of the EU puppet states. Anyway, this is a big development. The sanctions narrative is against Iran, against Russia, is completely bust. A big failure. The going after Russian assets, a big failure. The price caps, oil price caps and gas price caps, a big failure. All it's done is it's isolated these 4 or 5 entities, not 30 or 40 countries, these 4 or 5 entities, the Biden White House, the European Union, Justin Trudeau, and Australia and New Zealand. Those are the isolated countries. Everything that they've done has been a complete failure. And then you have the rest of the world going about their business, making deals, negotiating, engaging in diplomacy. They always push the narrative, the collective West mainstream media, all of these Western officials and politicians, they always like to push that narrative that Russia is bogged down in Ukraine. This is Russia's Afghanistan, their next Afghanistan, and Russia's going to collapse because it's bogged down in Ukraine. They like to push that narrative, but you know who's bogged down in Ukraine? It's the Biden White House. It's the European Union. They're bogged down in Ukraine. They're fixated on Ukraine and they can't get out. They can't get out. They're stuck. And I'm starting to think that this is part of Russia's go slow approach. I'm starting to think that Putin and Xi are like, just keep them obsessed with Ukraine, and we're going to shape the rest of the world. We're going to shape it to how we want to shape it. Just a thought. Just a thought. So let's talk about Ukraine. Since we're on the subject, we'll talk about Ukraine. We'll talk a little bit about Nord Stream, and then we'll do a couple of clown worlds. So in Ukraine, we have fighting in Bakhmut, now in the center of Bakhmut. Fighting is taking place right in the administrative center of Bakhmut. And I think this blows apart the narrative that Wagner is going to be taking some sort of a tactical break or something like that. We've been hearing some reports that Wagner is going to take 3, 4, 5 days and just kind of stop advancing, but I don't see it. Maybe they will, but I haven't seen it yet. I just see Wagner continuing to press forward, and now they're fighting in the city center of Bakhmut. Prigozhin, he said today that he's going to be running for Ukraine president in 2024. Quite a statement from Prigozhin of Wagner. And, I think I figured out Prigozhin. Prigozhin is, he says a lot of things to keep the Elensky regime and the collective West off balance. So he talks a lot of nonsense. He does a lot of trolling. Every now and then, he says stuff that's accurate. Like he'll give a report as to what's happening on the ground, like the position of the Wagner troops and the advancements that they're making, and it's accurate. So every now and then, he says accurate stuff. But then he goes off and says different things and trolls and makes up stuff. I think just to keep everyone guessing. I think I figured out Prigozhin. So when you get statements from Prigozhin, a lot of it is trolling, a lot of it is distracting and keeping the collective West off balance. But every now and then, he says stuff that's accurate. So Prigozhin obviously is trolling. maybe he will be president in 2024. Who knows? But he's trolling. He's trolling, and he's taking a jab at the Elensky regime. But the information is that, the confirmed information is that there is fighting in the city center. And we also have rumors, and these are just rumors, but there is a lot of talk that the Ukraine military is preparing next week for a very big offensive towards Bakhmut to try and break the cauldron, to open up some roads and some supply lines and break open the cauldron in Bakhmut. There are reports that the Ukraine military is amassing something like 50 to 55,000 troops in the direction of Bakhmut, including elite forces, including a lot of the resources that were supposed to go towards the spring offensive, the big NATO Collective West-sponsored spring offensive. But Elensky and the commander of the armed forces, Sivsky, they have decided to put those resources towards breaking the cauldron in Bakhmut, because it looks like Elensky is very, very invested in Bakhmut. He's connected his political success to holding on to Bakhmut. I've actually said this over many, many videos, that for Elensky, Bakhmut is a media and political priority. We can't forget the fact that Elensky, he spoke to Congress, and he told Congress that Bakhmut is going to change the trajectory of the war, and then he handed a Ukraine flag signed by Bakhmut soldiers to Pelosi and Kamala Harris. Elensky is absolutely connected with Bakhmut, and from what I understand, Sivsky is all in with this strategy. He wants to break the cauldron in Bakhmut, and he understands that the political and the media priority for holding on to Bakhmut is just too great. And so those two have decided to put around 50,000 troops in the direction of Bakhmut. Supposedly we're going to get this big offensive next week. The reports are that Zelensky does not want to put all those resources towards Bakhmut and would rather put those resources towards the spring offensive. But Elensky and Sivsky, they've overruled Zelensky. Those are the reports that we're getting. We'll see next week if this is true. I'm not going to confirm this. I'm not going to say this is 100%, but we'll see next week if Ukraine does indeed try to put forward a very big counteroffensive to break open the encirclement of Bakhmut. So that is the news from Bakhmut. And Elensky, he was giving a press conference yesterday. Alongside him was Finland's Prime Minister, the dancing queen, Sanna Marin. And Sanna Marin gave a speech and talked about how the EU is going to support Ukraine for as long as it takes. She called Elensky and the Ukraine military her heroes. And she said that Ukraine will be victorious. That's what Sanna Marin said. And then she put on her finest outfit and she went clubbing. I'm joking about that last part. She didn't go clubbing. Maybe she did. Who knows? But that's what she said. But the more interesting statement was from Elensky, and he started to complain about how the collective West media threw him under the bus with Nord Stream. Elensky was very, very upset with the whole pro-Ukraine groups blew up Nord Stream. Elensky was very, very upset. And he said something along the lines of I've treated the collective West media so well, and look what they do to me. he was referencing the New York Times and the Washington Post and cites all of these mainstream media publications which are pushing the ridiculous 6 people in a yacht blew up Nord Stream sabotage, which is crumbling. you're getting a lot of mainstream media outlets now in the collective West that don't even buy this story. And I'll get to this in a minute. But yeah, Elensky was upset. He's like, I treated you guys so well. And he said, I showed you respect. He said, I showed the collective West media respect. And this is how they pay me back, by saying Ukraine, pro-Ukraine groups blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. How dare you? How dare you? Yeah, that was Elensky. So now he's upset with the collective West mainstream media. Look, Elensky, here's the deal. Here is the deal. When they get the word from the deep state that your time is up and it's over for you, the New York Times and the BBC and CNN, they are going to smear you like there's no tomorrow. All they need is the go-ahead, the green light. Once the CIA and the Biden White House and Newland or whoever else is pulling the strings, Schwab and Soros and all these guys, once they say that Elensky is done, you're going to go from hero to zero very, very quickly. So I think Elensky got his first taste of collective West media betrayal. More is on the way. More is coming for Elensky. You better believe that. Anyway, Nord Stream. Let's talk a little bit about Nord Stream, because the narrative for Nord Stream is absolutely... Let's go down the stairs. Let's go to the track. How about that? The narrative for Nord Stream is absolutely crumbling. Everyone is making fun of this Gilligan's Island SS Minnow 3-hour tour pipeline sabotage. I mean, the thing is just, what a mess this was. I mean, there are mainstream media outlets in the collective West that are actually like questioning this narrative. So this thing has been just a complete disaster. So what have they decided to do? What has the Biden White House decided to do? Well, because this six guys in a yacht, 5 guys and 1 medical doctor in a yacht narrative is crumbling and is a huge embarrassment for the Biden White House, they've decided to call in Business Insider. And Business Insider, they are running a story saying that there was a Greek tanker called the Minerva Julie, a 600-foot oil and chemical tanker near the port of Rotterdam in the area of the Nord Stream pipeline sabotage. So now we're going with is this plan B? Is this narrative B? Or maybe this is narrative C? Maybe narrative, these steps are so. These steps are really, really steep. The first narrative was silence, right? We're just not going to say anything. We're going to try to bury this story. That didn't work. Seymour Hersh, he really blew apart that narrative, because he came out with his investigative report and everyone was like, crap, now we have to pay attention to Nord Stream. So that was plan A. Plan B was this six people in a yacht story. That didn't work out too well. And now they're on plan C, which is a Minerva, a Greek tanker yacht that goes by the name of Minerva. So this is from Business Insider. The question of who blew up Nord Stream pipeline is likely to remain an unsolved mystery for some time. Oh, is it? Even as new details surface from European investigators, one of the most intriguing clues to recently emerge comes not from official probes, but via a 29-year-old open source analyst based in Denmark. Oliver Alexander spent months analyzing data from the Maritime Automatic Identification System, or the AIS, from vessels that passed near the site of 3 out of the 4 pipeline ruptures shortly before the damage. He noticed that the Minerva Julie, a 600-foot Greek-flagged tanker, was headed east from Rotterdam when on September 6 it came to an abrupt stop in the middle of the Baltic Sea. And so it talks about how this tanker was hanging out there for about a week, and Business Insider is saying, what was that tanker doing hanging out there for about a week? And then you get the pipeline sabotage. The title of this article from Business Insider is Nord Stream Mystery. The tanker Minerva Julie spent 7 days idling near the attack site. That's right. An open source guy in Denmark. He cracked the case. He solved it. He solved it. It was a Greek tanker. It's more believable than that yacht story. I'll give them that. A Greek oil and chemical tanker. It's more believable, but come on now. Come on now. Well, maybe this is believable if we connect the dots. Joe Bidenopoulos, Greece's favorite son, a Greek oil tanker, an oil and chemical tanker. It's all starting to make sense now. It all makes sense. You see? Greece, the Greek connection, that was the missing link. Joe Bidenopoulos, Greece's favorite son. You know the Greek shippers. I don't know who has this ship. It's a Greek flag ship. It's a Greek flagged ship. I don't know who's the ship owner, but boy, oh boy, is this Greek oligarch going to be plenty mad, plenty upset if this story starts to gain traction, if this story starts to get promoted of a Greek tanker that blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. At least that's what this Business Insider article is suggesting. It doesn't actually say that they're confident that this is what happened. They're just kind of, they're floating it out there. They're balloon testing this story. A Greek tanker, 7 days in that area when the pipeline blew up. What's going on? What was going on? That's what Business Insider is asking. I'll put a link to the Business Insider article. Greece is not going to be happy with this. The Greek shipper is not going to be, whoever has this is not going to be happy with this. That's for sure. But anyway, that's what they're trying to do. So let's do some clown worlds and we will wrap this video up. I am at the Olympic Stadium in Greece, the first modern day Olympic Stadium in Greece, right here. And you can see the track, the stands. Actually, I think the stadium seats something like, I don't know, maybe like 70,000 people, 50, 70,000, I would guess, maybe more. I don't know. It's pretty big stadium. So let's do a couple of clown worlds and let's stay with Nord Stream. Let's stay with Nord Stream and let me find this this tweet article from the Financial Times. Well, here's an article from CNN. Russia has been capturing some U.S.-provided weapons to Ukraine and sending them to Iran, sources say. Well, yeah, of course. As weapons that are captured by the Ukraine are being sent to NATO. I mean, you know. No surprise there. Anyway, man, oh man, they are very upset with this Iran-Saudi deal. They are very, very, very upset. They are going to try to sabotage this with everything they've got. So there is a I believe it's a Financial Times story. Yes, it is, FT.com, which says that the EU plans joint Navy patrols to combat Russian threat to infrastructure. Because of the Nord Stream pipeline sabotage, they're planning, the EU is now going to do joint Navy patrols to combat the Russian threat to infrastructure. The Russian threat to infrastructure. So the EU is going to do joint Navy patrols to protect its infrastructure from itself. To protect its infrastructure from Bidenopoulos. Oh, man. Crazy stuff, man. Crazy stuff. Let's let's go to what I think is the best clown world for the day, and that has to do with this this story that President Elensky, he's asked Ukraine legal scholars to begin investigating if they can get Russia renamed to Muscovy in all international bodies and school textbooks. So Elensky, he would like to rename Russia to Muscovy. And actually, Elensky even said, from what I understand, the statement from Elensky is that once he gets the scholars' advice on renaming Russia to Muscovy, he's going to then make this big international push to get like the International Olympic Committee and the United Nations and all of these institutions to go along with renaming Russia as Muscovy. I think he said the Federation of Muscovy or something like that. These guys are such clowns. What a clown. What happened to the People's Republic of Russia? What happened to that name? Are we done with that name? The PRR, the People's Republic of Russia? What Karine Jean-Pierre said last week? We're not going to go with that one anymore? We're now going to go with the People's Republic of Muscovy? And the best part about this is that this name change, this dispute of a name for Russia is coming from Ukraine. I don't really need to say much else there. I think everyone that understands the meaning of Ukraine, the name, the word Ukraine, and understands the history, I think they understand what a clownish initiative this is from Elensky, coming from Ukraine. But everything they do is always about projection. It's always about projection. Anyway, those are the clown worlds. I thought that was a good clown world, the Muscovy one. Be careful what you wish for and what you say, Elensky, because it comes right back around and bites you in the you-know-what. The opening video clip that I had of Biden, State of the Union, where he was yelling about just a month ago how no one wants to be Xi Jinping. Name me one leader who wants to be Xi Jinping. That was 1 month ago. And look at what we got yesterday from Xi Jinping. Look at what his leadership and what China delivered to the world yesterday. So be very, very careful, Elensky, with your statements, your public statements. Anyway, that's the video, guys. I am coming to you from Athens, Greece, from the Olympic Stadium, and I'm going to hop on here and say goodbye. We are on Rockfin, we are on Rumble and Telegram and BitChute and ODYSEE and the Duran.locals.com, and go to the Duran shop, 10% off. Use the code GOOD DAY. Take care.